Welcome, everyone, to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross, and it is time for a preview of the 2025 Miami Masters, the second leg of the Sunshine Double, and the last hardcourt event for quite a while, which is something that I always find notable. Conditions-wise, it's quicker than Indian Wells. It has been on the faster end of hard courts in recent years. You have sometimes stifling heat. You have high levels of humidity. Some players handle that better than others. Wind is also sometimes a factor, just like Indian Wells. But in general, I think it has suited aggressive ball strikers in general. And servers like Hubert Hurkacz, for example, have been able to make some runs here. So I think the serving conditions are decent. But the only other thing I want to say before I get into the quarter by quarter is just something I've been thinking about recently. Not just because my Indian Wells predictions got smacked around pretty hard, albeit given what happened in the event, most people's predictions probably would have been smacked around pretty hard. I just think this is the hardest moment in time to predict men's tennis that I can remember right now. Because ultimately, you don't have that stable, reliable core of top players, at least not in the numbers that we have been used to. Jannik Sinner suspended. Carlos Alcaraz, incredibly explosive peaks. He's been able to win a lot of slams in the last 3 years, relatively speaking. That said, he's not necessarily the guy you want playing. Sorry, I just got to move my light. He's not necessarily the guy you want playing with your life on the line, because he will throw in vulnerable performances now and then, and you don't necessarily know what you're going to get week to week and match to match. At least if you compare him to some of the very elite players in the last couple decades. Zverev is out of sorts right now. Medvedev is way more beatable than he used to be. Novak Djokovic has won one title in the last 15 months. There are probably like 10 guys after them who you feel have the tennis, the capabilities to win a title like this if everything shakes out correctly. But you feel that there's a large kind of glob of players who almost occupy the same tier. You look at these draws, and there's great parity. There's a lot of evenness. Therefore, there's a lot of different ways things can go. Hasn't always felt that way. All right, Alexander Zverev's quarter. He is the top seed. If you're new to the channel, dark horse must be an unseeded player. Upset alert, seeded player. Early popcorn, first or second round match that I feel is particularly intriguing. My dark horse here is Talon Griekspoor. My upset alert is Frances Tiafoe. My early popcorn is Draper versus Menchik, round number 2. Let's start with Griekspoor, who was kind of the king of bad draws last year. As I've discussed, there were just a lot of top 10 players early in his draws. He played them tight often. He did not close very well against them in general. I have not fancied Griekspoor's clutch play, or I have not regarded his clutchness very highly in the last year or so, but we've started to see that turn around at the last couple events. A tight match win over Medvedev, a tight match win over Zverev, and suddenly you feel like if it gets to a tiebreak, Griekspoor is just going to have a little bit more belief in himself, and therefore find ways to win in those moments instead of finding ways to lose. I'm also just generally impressed with what he did at Indian Wells, because it's not the easiest place for him to execute his attacking style. So Miami, quicker conditions. He won't get neutralized as often. He can dominate with his spot serving, his forehand, and his net rushing. The thing about Griekspoor, he's really good when he's moving north, when he's moving downhill through the court. Like, that's when he's playing his best tennis. As soon as he starts going side to side too much, that's where he is much more average. So he needs, kind of quick conditions, I think, to try to get forward and play on the front foot. Upset alert, Frances Tiafoe. He's struggling. He hasn't won back-to-back matches since the U.S. Open last year. when he made Cincinnati final. Before that, U.S. Open semi. And you're thinking, all right, Tiafoe, tough 2024, but did that get him out of the rut? You know, are we going to go back to being a top 20 player on a regular basis, playing like a top 20 player on a regular basis? And the answer's been no so far. He plays Jan-Lennard Struff, who hasn't played well this year so far, but I do think the draws have been tough. I don't think his level has been that bad. Or Alejandro Davidovich Fokina in his first match. And Fokina is putting together probably his best start to a season maybe ever. And he's so incredibly talented. So two very different styles, very different challenges, but both of them present some serious challenges. Popcorn match, I'm going to go Draper versus Menchik. Quick note on Jakob. His ATP profile, the pronunciation, it's Mensik. That's what he says. But then you have a lot of Czech people who will tell you, no, it's Menchik. My friend Rob Werner, who was broadcasting the Kopkana Challenger last week, just asked Jakob, okay, how do you actually say it? And it is indeed Menchik. So he just said it wrong on his thing. And I don't know why players do that. Corentin Moutet is another one. He says Moutet in his thing. That's obviously not how to say his name. I don't know why players do that, but I just wanted to throw that in there. Obviously, Jack coming off the Indian Wells title. It is sometimes a tough turnaround, and we will see if he is ready to turn it around very quickly. These are good serving conditions, which is massive for Jakob Mensik, who physically and perhaps technically on the forehand still isn't ready to really bang with the big boys from the back of the court. Not quite there yet. But he'll embrace the role of underdog here. I feel he plays better as an underdog at this stage in his career. That'll be something that he'll also need to continue to work on. Big blow up in Kopkana, by the way. I think he smashed 3 rackets in his match. But yeah, I'll really be wanting to watch that one because you guys know how high I am on Jakob Mensik, and for Jack, new conditions. I'm sure a busy last week for him. A lot going on. We'll see how that one plays out. Quarterfinal. Well, the answer to my question is that I think it will play out just fine for Jack Draper, because my quarterfinal prediction is Draper defeats Zverev. At least recently, I think top players who go deep at Indian Wells, I feel like they've done quite well in Miami. I think your Alcarazes of the world, Medvedevs of the world, Jannik Sinners of the world, all of them have had no problem going deep Indian Wells and Miami. I just don't know with the new 11-day thing how difficult it is after winning a title and getting a bye in the first round of the next one and then getting more days off. I don't think it's physically that tough, and I don't feel the conditions if you're looking at Jack. Now, yes, I think the jump he was getting off the court helped him a lot at Indian Wells. I don't expect him to get that in Miami, but look, I think if he goes up against Alexander Zverev, he's just so much more confident in his game right now than Alex. I think that's enough to make the difference. And it's not like Jack played well for 1 week and that you're kind of going off of that. No, I mean, the signs have been there since the U.S. Open semifinal that Draper has made a leap, that Draper is ready to be a top player. Again, my only concern for him coming into this year was, could he win the big matches when he gets there because of the nerves? That was my only question. But that's not going to stop me from picking him through to the quarterfinal here. I did think about Tomas Mahac, who had the big run in Acapulco and then got sick, I suppose, at Indian Wells. I don't know. I commentated that match in the first round. I don't know what that was, but he retired. He was sick, I think. So I did think about Mahac. Rune, I have some theories about him. He played great obviously had a great week at Indian Wells. Let's see how it plays out. I don't want to spout off with some of my thinking towards Holger, because it could be totally wrong, but I have some questions about Rune. So I shy away from him here. Fils is a guy who I really do think the Indian Wells conditions help him with the slower pace of the court, more returns in play, a little bit more time to load up the forehand, and the heavy RPMs he gets, I think, are important for his effectiveness. So I don't think this hard court suits Arthur Fils quite as well as the Indian Wells hard court. So you look at this quarter, a lot of guys who did great in the Californian desert, in Draper, Fils, and Rune, and it's kind of about how these guys rebound, and then if Zverev can get out of his rut. All right, let's go to the 3 seed Taylor Fritz's quarter. Fritz playing at home in Miami. He no longer... He might still have a place in LA, but I think his main U.S. residence now is in Miami. Anyway, top seeds: Fritz, Rublev, de Minaur, Shelton, Humbert, Hurkacz, Shapovalov, Berrettini. A lot of big servers or high holds rate guys after you get past de Minaur in this quarter, which is something I just noticed. My dark horse is Tien/Fonseca. My upset alert is Andrei Rublev. My early popcorn is Tien versus Fonseca, round number 1. I thought about some other guys, I guess, with dark horse. Like, who did I consider here? If I can take a quick look at it. Maybe not. I mean, there's Nishikori. There's Cam Nori. There is... I guess it's not a great... it's not a great quarter of unseededs other than these two guys. So it was a pretty easy pick. Lerner Tien is playing Joao Fonseca first round. Winner gets Humbert. So that's where they're positioned in the draw. You hope for a windy day. You hope for a day where Hugo isn't completely dialed into the conditions. Humbert honestly just hasn't been very good in the United States throughout his career for whatever reason. So I think there's opportunity there. Fonseca could hit a physical wall at some point. I could definitely see that happening. Lerner was sick at Indian Wells. He lost to Mariano Navone. I don't think he would have lost to Mariano Navone had he not been sick. So, there are those physical storylines coming in, and ultimately I'll get into the matchup in a moment. But let's talk about my upset alert, Andrei Rublev. Look, Rublev, last 52 weeks, so in the last year, his record in first matches is 15-12. I talked about this in my Indian Wells notebook dump, but Rublev has become a player who loses in the first round somewhat often recently. And he gets the winner of Zizou Barracks or Nuno Borges. That's pretty solid, pretty dangerous. Zizou's been really good on the indoor hard courts. I don't know if it's quite translated outdoors. And Nuno Borges is like a very consistent top 50 level. Like, I don't often watch Nuno Borges and think like, oh, wow, he was horrible in this match. Like, that's very, very rare. He will bring it. Tien Fonseca, obvious early popcorn, the biggest early popcorn probably of Miami here in the first round. I think Joao's best level is higher right now. I also think Tien's level is steadier. And that's a major strength for Lerner. It's the reason why at the challenger level last year, he was able to just consistently go deep every week and get his ranking up so quickly, is because he doesn't really have big dips. And Tien is a really good pace absorber. So that's another thing that won't be easy for Fonseca. Lerner is going to play probably a lot like Jack Draper played at Indian Wells. It's going to be a very good test for Joao. I don't know if I want to make a pick in this one. I haven't really thought about it too much, but the crowd is another factor here. It's going to be an insane crowd for Joao. I think Fonseca will dig deep and win here. I don't want to make it too much about motivation, but again, I think crazy crowd. His family is with him in Miami. He's confident off of Phoenix. He'll have a couple of days to recoup physically, although I think it could catch up with him, especially because he did kind of have a little thigh tweak thing. I'll lean Fonseca, but close to 50-50, in my opinion. All right, let's go to the quarterfinal. Prediction here, quarterfinals, is de Minaur defeats Shelton. Let me start with Alex. Miami history has not been great for him. That, I guess, gives me a little bit of pause, but ultimately, these conditions remind me a lot of the Australian Open. It's a quick hard court. It's hot. It's humid. Demon plays well in those conditions. He likes those conditions. He hasn't been in a big semifinal, despite him being in a ton of big quarterfinals and playing a lot of good tennis over the last year. Feels due to me. Like, it just feels like it's bound to happen at a certain point, and the draw is really good. It could open up big time. If you look at his little, eighth, the seeds are Humbert, Berrettini, and Rublev. And on an outdoor hard court in the U.S., just none of those guys are reliable to hold seed, and then they're all guys who Demon has had some success against. The top eighth is really hard for me to pick. You have Fritz in there, who is still searching. He seems low on confidence right now. And to me, Shelton and Shapo seem to be playing more imposing tennis than Taylor at the moment. So I went with Ben. I think Shapo, even though he's the 27 seed, I think he deserves a serious look there. But against de Minaur, if it's Shelton or Shapo, I could see either of them struggling for cheap points on serve, which they sometimes rely on, and consistency against de Minaur, who's going to kind of keep the ball deep and keep them at bay and rush them into their more erratic wings, into their backhands mainly. Use the backhand down the line often if you're de Minaur. So I like Alex to get through there. All right, shall we? Novak Djokovic's quarter, the number 4 seed. He's got Djokovic. He doesn't got Djokovic. He is Djokovic. But he's got Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Musetti, Auger-Aliassime, Korda, Lehechka, and Mickelson. My dark horse here is Gael Monfils. My upset alert is Novak Djokovic. My early popcorn is none. I'm double dipping on Monfils. I made him a dark horse at Indian Wells. He had a good showing for me. Okay, he made the third round. He played an epic against Grigor Dimitrov, lost it in a third set tiebreak. That to me is a good dark horse showing. Golf clap. And I'm just going to go his way again because I think he can give Lehechka a lot of issues. Monfils is a great shock absorber, and the variety that he brings is something that I think Lehechka hates. I don't think Lehechka wants, short, slow, little, slice and off-speed ground strokes and high loopy balls. Like that's the last thing Lehechka wants. Yuri wants rhythm so that he can overpower his opponent in baseline exchanges. And it's also very, very tough to get free points off of Monfils. Great defensive returner. Lehechka also relies a bit on that. So I kind of like Monfils over Lehechka, and Gill's been tough on Medvedev as well in the past. I don't know if he would have enough to get through, but he has been tough on Medvedev before. Upset alert Novak. I'm excited to see him play in Miami. First time since 2019. Last year, he essentially skipped it for no reason. I mean, let's be honest. The reason he didn't play Miami is because he didn't want to play Miami. Like that is the reason. I think he said he had other priorities or family. He wanted to spend time with family. So, that's code for I don't wanna. Now, this year, he's making a different decision. He wouldn't be playing it if he didn't want to win, okay? He's brought Andy Murray over, which I do think is maybe a little bit overblown as like an argument that Djokovic is super motivated right now. I mean, Andy is his coach right now. Like, let's make no mistake about it. So I don't think it's like this massive signal that Novak is going after it in some extraordinary way just because he brought Andy over. But, it's still a red flag for me when you're looking at an event that in past years he's just chosen to skip due to lack of motivation. Not to mention, Novak, he doesn't love the extreme heat. He doesn't like the extreme wind. That tends to be an equalizer for opponents when they go up against Novak. There's no guarantee that he's going to be contending with that, but there is a possibility in Miami. And nobody is immune to confidence issues. And now that has entered the equation for Novak Djokovic, there will be some doubts. He does need to get some momentum back on his side. Even Novak Djokovic is not immune to the forces that affect every single tennis player who's ever played the game, which is that memory is short, and when you're in a bad stretch and you've taken a couple of first-round losses, as Novak has, and it's been a while since you've shook hands the winner, it can be tough from a confidence standpoint. Now, that said, I don't think Hamad Medjedovic or Rinky Hijikata is going to beat him. I don't think Alex Mickelson will beat him either in his second match or in the third round of the tournament. So I'm not picking an early upset, but I still think that he needs to be on alert because I wouldn't be all that shocked. And nothing else enticed me in this quarter for upset alert. I guess I could have went with like GMP or Popperin, who are the low seeds, but what fun is that? No fun at all. Let's go to the quarterfinal prediction. I've got Medvedev defeating Djokovic. It'd be great to see this matchup. I feel like it's been a while. It's a rivalry that I've really enjoyed over the years. And for Medvedev, I think big picture, I still don't think he's going to have a good year by his previous standards. I still feel like Daniil is in the decline, 100,000-foot view. But I also think this can be a really good tournament for him. It's early in the year. He's physically fresh. He has some momentum. He plays well in these conditions. His serve numbers have recovered a bit. He is serving bigger. I think he's moving really well at the moment. He has Stefanos Tsitsipas in his area. He has a 10-4 head-to-head over Steph, even though Tsitsipas has made some progress in that matchup. Still, Daniil has looked better. And I think an outdoor hardcourt would be exactly where Medvedev wants to play Tsitsipas. Once it gets onto the clay, obviously it's a different story. I think even indoor hardcourt, it helps Tsitsipas, but Medvedev wants that match outdoor on hardcourt. And the Djokovic head-to-head is also one that in a lot of ways Daniil has savored and enjoyed. Novak has had to be really sharp with his variety, with his net play, mixing in serve and volley, and drop shotting, sort of relying on a lot of stuff that is obviously in Djokovic's bag, but it's not necessarily his bread and butter. Novak has needed to do all that stuff in order to beat Medvedev, and I think Daniil can make it physical, can exploit Djokovic if all of the offensive tools aren't working to the max, and get the better of Novak, out-solid him. I think that's possible, given what we've seen from Novak in March and April, or at least the first half of April over the years. So that's why I have Daniil. Last quarter, won Carlos Alcaraz, the number 2 seed. He's got Ruud, Paul, Dimitrov, Khachanov, Cerundolo, Tabilo, and Nakashima. This is a good quarter for Alcaraz, right? You look at the top seeds here. You've got some, Paul's dangerous, Dimitrov's dangerous. Khachanov, I feel like he had a really nice run in Miami, I think 2 years back, if memory serves. But Cerundolo's actually played well in Miami over the years. It's kind of random. I don't know why he's played well in Miami, but he has. My dark horse here is Alexander Bublik. My upset alert is Casper Ruud. My early popcorn is not Kyrgios unless his wrist is healed. I didn't really know what else to put. Again, I might need to rethink the early popcorn thing because this Masters 1000 format, it kind of kills early popcorn. Like oftentimes, this never happens at a slam. At a slam, I'm always seeing round 1 matchup juicy, round 2 matchup juicy all the time. But Masters 1000s, a lot of the time I'm just not seeing it for whatever reason. So, anyway, let's start with Bublik, who is my dark horse. I'm not super emphatic on this, but I chose Bublik over Mackie McDonald, who qualified. I gave him a look. Alexander Blocks had a great junior career, 19-year-old Belgian. He came through qualifying. Haven't really seen the quality wins from him, even at the challenger level that I want to see, like top 100 wins. So I passed on that. Then Miomir Kecmanovic is another guy. I like it this time of year, but I made him dark horse at Indian Wells. I didn't feel like double dipping on him. So Bublik it is, a guy who I watched play 5 matches last week in Phoenix. And you could see what, racket change, wins under his belt, racking up aces again. He believes he's found himself. He's been a top 20 player before, and he will remind you of that. And he said after his semifinal match against Borges, which was his best performance of the week, he said, "Today I showed everyone why you love me and know me." That's the kind of mood he's in. So suddenly we have confidence. I do believe there are some systematic issues in his game that aren't just fixed in 1 week, that will prevent him from being someone who I trust week to week, or someone who I think is going to spend meaningful time in the top 20 for an extended period in his career. Like just aspects of the second serve and the forehand and just the way his overall style is built. I think there are some systematic issues, but when he serves the lights out and he's getting to the net and he's using his touch and his feel and being unpredictable and taking away your rhythm, it can be, he's definitely the most dangerous unseeded player in this quarter. No doubt about it. Upset alert, Casper Ruud has not played the big hard court events well in a while. He made the final here in 2022, but they sped up the courts the next year. Starting in 2023, James Blake, the tournament director, kind of led a charge to tell the manufacturers, Blake Holt, to make it faster. Since the start of 2023, for Ruud, hardcourt Masters record is 12-13. 12-13. So 3-5 in the last 52 weeks. So in the last year, just hasn't been really good at these events. There have been some runs on hard courts since the start of 2023, but they have not come at the Masters 1000s and they have not come at the majors. Who does he play early? I think he's got somebody tough. Oh yeah, he's got the winner of Kovacevic, who just won the title in Capacana, and Kecmanovic, who trains in Florida, plays his best tennis first 3 months of the year, has had a big run in Delray, so it's pretty dangerous for Ruud early on. Although his high seed is to be low, which is ideal, obviously, if you're looking for a seed to go up against. Popcorn match, I just wrote not Kyrgios if his wrist isn't healed, because, again, Kyrgios is in the draw, and again, I'll just say, like, what's the plan here? Are we good? Is the wrist good? Are we healed? Or not? Again, I'm very confused at where we're at, because it feels like this is a guy whose wrist is not okay, and he's still trying to play, but he can't be competitive, which is it's strange. So hopefully it's a better showing than Indian Wells physically for the wrist. Let's see. He plays Mackie McDonald first round. Quarterfinal prediction is Carlos Alcaraz defeats Tommy Paul. Alcaraz had what felt like a disappointing Indian Wells, even though he made the semifinals and lost to Jack Draper, which is by no means some sort of disastrous result. I thought the press conference stuff was A little bit concerning from a confidence standpoint, but I'm willing to say that was more of a Jack Draper thing and not a reflection on how Alcaraz feels about his overall game right now, and just had a bad day in the office. Ultimately, in Miami, even though it is not known as sort of this ideal, like, perfect tournament for him like Indian Wells is, he is 13-2 in Miami since 2022. He ran into an insane Dimitrov performance last year. Grigor was completely off the chain, which I always feel like is a risk on this kind of court in best of three. That against Alcaraz, somebody can kind of play redlining offensive tennis, make it work, and beat Alcaraz in a best of three set match. It's a lot harder at majors. It's a lot harder in slower conditions. But in Miami, you feel like it could happen. There could be a Dimitrov rematch, and Tommy Paul plays Carlos Alcaraz really well often. I believe one of those meetings was at Miami, where it was an Alcaraz win, but very much a popcorn match. That said, those two guys, Tommy and Grigor, have had enough issues this year that I just can't really pick the upset here against Alcaraz, even though I think there is a world. Couldn't pick it given the vulnerabilities with them. So with that, let us move on to the final weekend prediction reveal in 3, 2, 1. I've got de Minaur defeating Draper in 3 sets. I've got Alcaraz over Medvedev in 2 sets. I've got Alcaraz over de Minaur in 3 sets. So let me start with the de Minaur over Draper. That's actually been a really good head-to-head for Alex. The only time Draper got him was at the U.S. Open when Alex couldn't really move because the hip flared up on him again. Now, is Draper a different player right now than before? Yes, but at the same time, I kind of hesitate to pick a guy to reach back-to-back finals who has had so many physical issues in the Sunshine Double, and I know I picked him through to the semis, but then the further you go, the more some of those question marks I might be taking more seriously, like from a physical standpoint. Alcaraz over Medvedev, 2 sets. I still feel like, despite the odd Medvedev performances that we've seen, like at the U.S. Open against Carlos Alcaraz, I think Carlos is really comfortable against Daniil. It goes into a lot of the stuff that I was saying about how Medvedev inspires his opponents to play better. On Monday Match Analysis yesterday, I talked about that with Holger Rune and the masterful variety and discipline-filled performance that Holger put together against Medvedev. And I think Alcaraz, in a similar vein, it's nice for him to have that clarity and those guardrails against an opponent like Medvedev, which is to say that he knows he can't blast through Daniil. Therefore, he is actually less likely to lean into some of his more self-destructive habits, like hitting himself out of a match, and actually go to playing the brand of tennis that makes him most dangerous, which is when he is being really thoughtful about using all of the tools he has. In the final, Alcaraz over de Minaur 3 sets. De Minaur has struggled to beat top guys at big tournaments, slams, masters, top 5 players. It just hasn't been a great combination for Alex. And I don't think that's a coincidence, and I don't think it's a mental thing. I just think when the best players in the world play their best tennis, there's not much de Minaur can do. So as much as I would love to see him get into a Masters 1000 final, I think that would be a good feather in his cap that is deserved based on the consistent output that he's been bringing in the last year or so, week in and week out. There's a reason why the resume is what it is for de Minaur against players like Alcaraz. I think if Alcaraz works his way into the final, and is feeling good about himself and is going up against Alex de Minaur. I couldn't see Carlos losing that match. So I'm going Alcaraz again. I don't love to be wrong the same way twice in a row, which is what I'm risking here, but I can't let the fear of that get in the way of what I think is the right pick. As much as I did consider other options, including going ahead and picking Alex de Minaur to win his first Masters 1000, because I do think results like that at the moment are prone to happening. I could see a bounce back from Carlos. I could see a big Miami Open run. That is what I'm going to go with here. And I'm excited for the Miami Open. I'll bring more regular coverage, probably some extra videos. Mailbag coming on Monday. Gotta do a video about the lawsuit, the PTPA class action lawsuit against the ATP and the WTA. So at some point, I'll put together my thoughts on that. Stay tuned for it. And that is all I got. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.